There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin. I'm the CTO and co-founder of High Mobility. And today in this session, in this live session, I will show you our new developer console that we just launched that brings a lot of new features and functionality to manage your connected car projects using vehicle data for your fleets. So we have been having a developer console, a self-serve approach for years. It's been always the way that we want our developers or users, our customers to be able to manage the data containers, the API access, API credentials on their own with as little support needed really for manual tasks as possible. And as we have been adding more brands, more vehicle manufacturers throughout the years, we have seen a lot of different ways on how we can even make it more simpler. And in this new developer console, we have taken all that kind of experience and knowledge and put it into one place, into this new console, and hopefully you will really like to work with that as well. The migration has been from the old platform to the new platform automatically. So all your kind of user accounts, your teams, and your live application containers, they are still there in this new format. And going forward, you can only really create new fleet projects in this new console, and I will walk you really through all of those type of details. If you meanwhile have any questions, just feel free to write it in the chat, and I'll get to that at some point during this session for sure. So let's get right into it, and I will go ahead and share my screen, and we go into our platform. Here we go. As always, the experience starts from our website, highmobility.com. You can go ahead and click here, get started, and just sign in. And directly we're in the new console. So this is by default, we're in the new console. There's nothing you really have to do. And if you're signing up a new account, this is also where you will land right after registration to see your dashboard. To kind of show you what's the different components, as usual, we have the menu up here. We have the resources, the API guides, references, data catalog. We have the resources for support, developer chat, dev talk, tutorial videos such as these, and downloads. That's the same as you had in the old console. You will always find the resources on the top in the top bar. For your own personal accounts, you can get to account settings here. We'll go into that in a second. You have your teams. You can manage new teams here. And then you have different projects. So this is one of the main new ways of how we've set up the new console. Instead of working in what we called sandbox or build or develop, and then we had live apps separately. Now we have everything in one place, different projects, and those projects can either be for sandbox, for live data, or even combined, because usually we see that our users working first with the sandbox, the simulators, and then they are moving on to a live environment. So it makes sense to kind of merge those type of data permissions as you kind of go into that path. And as soon as you set up a live application, you can always create new projects just for sandbox purpose. Works either way in the end. It's all about fleet apps here. So this is if you have been using any type of consumer apps that's still available in the legacy consoles. I'll show you that in a moment. But this is all focused about managing fleet apps. If you're a fleet operator, for your own vehicles, or if you're a solution provider for the fleets, data access for the fleets of your customers. We have a categorization here, all and live, and you can also create a new project. We'll do that in a second. First, if you are kind of want to go back and see something from your old console, there is a way in account switch to legacy. We'll get a pop-up that says that legacy will open a new window. You need to sign in again. Basically, it's the same kind of user access, but it's a different system, so you need to sign in again. I have done this already, so that's why I get right in the legacy console, and this is what you have seen so far when you've been using our platform. And with a big yellow box, this is the legacy console, switch to the new one, an alert there as well. All your kind of fleet application that you had here, so I had a bunch of different examples there. These are no longer accessible in this kind of in this environment because it's all in the new project. We don't want you to you cannot really switch back to the old one and change some things here and then change things in the new projects. But for these kind of consumer applications that you might have, those are still available from here to be able to change those settings. And we also have the kind of old views that you might be familiar with. In general, you shouldn't have any need to go back and look at any of these type of things for your fleet apps. It's all in the new projects. If you had some kind of develop apps, so especially for the sandbox applications for the fleet environment, they are no longer available here. in generally, you have to recreate those kind of develop apps in the new console. The old apps are still there, so if you need to really access those, maybe you're using it for different purposes, you want to see what permissions list you have selected, just get in touch with us. They are not deleted or disappeared anywhere. They're just hidden to not make any unwanted mistakes. But if you need to access it, just talk to us and we can manage that. Now let's go back to the new console. So once we have, you've seen here from the kind of settings, you can also manage your account settings here. And one of the new features we have is that we finally have the two-factor authentication switched on here. It took a while for us just because we had introduced it here in the new console, and then we made it available now. So you can set up it with an authenticator app. So you can just switch to enable it. You get the QR code. You can use your own favorite app that you want to use, or even some kind of software apps like 1Password. And then you also can generate recovery codes. Strongly suggest to switch on two-factor, and also it might be a policy in your company. When you have a team account, this is where you would do it. You can also use passkeys. So that's another new feature. You can set up a passkey, also become very popular for authentication as an alternative, and that works just as well. In the end, you can have your email preferences, then also then your delete account option if you want to delete your account completely. Then we have teams. So if I go into the team settings here, I can see I have a few one here, and I can also see the role, the number of members, and also number of projects. So it's easy enough. I just create a new team here. I could create one, and then also invite team members. This works just the same way as before. One difference is that if you're a new user signing up to a platform, you're automatically in a team. So there's no longer the possibility to have a single user account without any team. As soon as you have a high mobility account, you always have a team that you belong to, and you can rename that team. You can invite people to that team. So we always have projects within teams, and that's the nature of how we see the projects have been working out. The people always collaborate with other people. To see different settings, I can go in and go into team settings, and there's another option to set it as default. The default team is what is selected when you sign into your account. Here in the kind of overview, it's just one user here. It's me. You can also see that the two-factor authentication is switched on. That's convenient for administrators, so you can really make sure that all of the different team members in your account have two-factor authentication enabled. And if not, you can get in touch with them and tell them to enable it. And you can also switch to edit the roles of the different users. Now, the roles is another kind of revamp of the new platform, because we have really different granular permissions for different users. So you can see that administrators can do everything. We have members, and we also have viewers. And you can assign this type of settings to your different team members. And by having this overview, you can always kind of relate to what they can access, what they cannot access. It's another kind of convenient feature, just to have everything in one place and make sure that the security settings are as tight as they need to be. And then we have the company profile that you need to have billing details. So you always need to have the company details filled out in order to in the end access to live data. I'll get to that in a minute. But when you submit a project, that's also like before, you need to have the company details set up. And by default, it all works with credit cards. So you can add your credit card here. It's handled by Stripe. You can add your invoice details. They would be the ones who get the invoice at the end of each month. And if you like to pay by invoice instead of credit card details, just talk to us, and we can also enable that for your application. And delete team settings, of course, as well in the end. We can go back. That's about teams. Let's back to the dashboard and talk about projects. So this is, of course, the main place where you would work with any type of projects, is you go ahead and create a new data project. So we have a few different options here, just kind of for continuity and for the future. Currently, we have fleet data for Europe available here. So I'll go ahead and select that. And that's my, let's say my fleet solution project. Or it could be the name of a use case, depending on how you want to set up your projects. I created it here. It pops up. I can open it. And this is now the most important view where you will work with things, because this is the kind of dashboard where you configure your application and the settings that you are using. First off, we see the details to the right, and that's consent type. You cannot change it. It's the fleet. It's what you selected in the beginning. Same with the market. Select the brands, billing, product information about you. It's a kind of a summary of all the different settings. We also have status, so we can see it's in draft, review, live, and that's works the same way. It's kind of in the new old console. When you configure your data containers, your project, you can go ahead and work with that for as long as you want. In the end, when you want to access the live data, you submit it and it goes into review. And also you can make changes, and those changes to permissions also go into review and is managed on our side. On the left-hand side, you can see the different menus. So let's go ahead with the probably the most interesting part right away. That's the data selection. So here we can see all the different brands that we support. And now this is a bit different than before, because you can work brand by brand. Let's select BMW as the first brand. We also have the different packages listed and the different kind of estimated price. So these are the list prices. Gives you right away an indication of what you could expect. We have different packages. So here we have a mileage package, a list price of 99 cents. We can see what's included. That's the odometer. I can go ahead and select it. It shows that it's available over pull and push, and also the frequency. So if it's trip start end, and also here every 2 minutes for newer cars. As soon as I select the mileage property here, it also populated on the right-hand side, also for Mini, because it's BMW Group. It's one data supplier, so to speak. So if you select it for BMW, it's automatically included for Mini as well. Then I can go ahead and choose maybe something else. We have all these different packages. And vehicle location is another popular data package. I select that as well. And then I can move on to something else. For instance, Mercedes-Benz is up next. And here I also have the different packages Mercedes-Benz is supporting. So I go ahead and select location and also mileage. So I keep it quite consistent. I say that's the 2 data points I'm interested in. And I can move on to other OEMs as well. Maybe moving on to Ford. I select here a package. I can get one package with mileage and location data updated every 24 hours. Or I decide that I need to get the location data at a more frequent basis, maybe every 300 seconds. And then I can choose that package instead and have all those different data points. Or if I decide that I want to explore a bit more, I can also see that I can get a big data set from Ford as well for 30 seconds, which is the higher price. I can select it instead. So it's no longer just about selecting the data points. It's really about selecting the different packages, because in many cases, we have the same data point across different packages. It might have a different update frequency, and you can really have a complete overview when you're going through OEM by OEM in what is supported. If you want to go the other way around to see, okay, I really need to get tire pressure data, which OEM support it, of course, you can click around here, but you can also use our typical resources like our Airtable. Just go down to tire pressure status, and you can also from there see exactly what brands support it. But this is the common workflow, and this works really well. You just have to do it once for your project, and then you can go to the checkout. So same here, I can select my data point or the package that I want to get. And in some cases, if you select the package, it's not that you can select a bulk up several packages. They might be exclusive. So in this case, it might be that I have to select here that I want to get just the mileage, or I can select I want to get the vehicle location package, which also includes mileage already. And then it selects that package. And now I already have quite a decent brand selection and also indicative pricing for each one of those. Also, a newcomer is here as Volkswagen Group data that we launched a few months ago. You can also go in and select those type of packages right from here. We have Volvo Cars, Tesla, Porsche, Toyota Group, Renault, Kia as well, and with a few more OEMs coming early next year as well. I can already speak about that in the new year. So when you selected all these kind of data points, that will be the point of time when you also can do a submit. But there are a few other things in the projects that are necessary. One of them is the API details. So just as before, the authentication method hasn't changed. We did a big revamp of this beginning of the year. It's been working great. You can get your OAuth client details directly from the project view here in API certificates. You have your client ID, client secret, the token URI. You can also use certificate-based authentication. Just as before, it's all explained in the documentation. This is where you would manage it. You have your streaming option. by default, streaming is disabled. You can enable then MQTT, AWS S3 bucket streaming, Kinesis. Kinesis we just added recently. It's another good option if you're using AWS. And we have a few more streaming options coming up early next year for other cloud platform providers, not only for AWS, because we see a lot of requests for that. When you configure a streaming option differently, it can take up to 1 hour to propagate in the systems. So if you just switch to MQTT in the simulator and just want to try to get data immediately, you might have to wait a bit, but that's really just a one-time switch delay. And then we have webhooks. So webhooks we have kind of scaled down to just these type of events. Fleet clearance changed. That's the most common webhook that is used to really get notified about when vehicle activation is approved or if it's revoked or rejected. And we are looking to try to get in these type of events to the streaming options as well. There's no easy options yet, but hopefully we get around to it at one point next year. But still today you can use webhooks to get those events if that's important to you. The same goes for live APIs. So you can see here we have Sandbox, we have live, so you can switch. And also the different credentials, of course, for live, and for Sandbox, there's different token URIs. So you manage all of those things right away, right from here, especially as you're starting with the Sandbox environment and move on to the live API. The next thing is the simulator. We have it here. I will show you that in a minute because I will also do a full demo of doing a vehicle clearance with using the API and show you that from beginning to end. But it's still here. It's the same simulator we launched about a year ago. And all the same features, so nothing has changed on that side. And then we have some product info, website URL, terms of service, and also privacy policy that you can add to your project settings, which are useful for us when you submit it, because we can always cross-check with the contracts we have with you, and if everything see everything kind of is aligned, and then we can go ahead and activate those vehicles. Also on that side, today you can also expect that you can expect app activations to go even faster. Because once with this new console, we also have a completely new administrative view for us internally to manage and support you in your apps. So if you have an app submission, it's much easier for us to activate it much faster without any worries about anything going wrong with the billing or pricing and all those type of things or configurations, because in the end, we have to also manage those activations with the OEMs and those type of APIs that they are using. So this is now something that's much simpler than before. And if I'm ready, I would just go ahead and submit it. I will not do that today because I was still working here in this Sandbox environment. So let's have a look in the kind of full view. I go back here. I can see my two projects. And now I want to actually get started and to connect to one of these. I click the same kind of application that I used before. I go into simulations. I have one simulator here already. I will create a new one just for the sake of it, and click here, create a new simulator. Here we go. I will rename it to something like live session car. Open it up. Here we go. You can see here's the VIN, and I will maybe change it something that looks a bit better. Why not the BMW? And we have the BMW data set here. Okay. We have still the simulations feature and the different kind of capabilities that you can change to work with the Simulation Studio and the logs in the bottom. So now I want to really from scratch go ahead and start using this. All of this, how it's done, is all part of the documentation in the end. So if you go to API guides, you have all the information here, specifically with the clearance API and all that. We have a bunch of videos about it, but now in the new console, I will show you how that works. First, I'll go to Postman. Use public API network. So that's always one of the easiest ways to kind of get started with our API. Just go to Postman, search for high mobility. And here we have high mobility public API workspace. I choose the fleet API. I go ahead and click run in Postman. It will open up. I can fork it. I can also just operate in Postman. Now I'm importing it here into my Postman app that I have installed. And right away, I can see the different fleet APIs here. Another thing that is imported apart from the endpoint, so we can see the list vehicles, add vehicles, get vehicles, get the vehicle data, check the eligibility of cars. I also get environment file. So I go ahead here and click on the fleet environment. It's already refilled with the token URI for Sandbox. Let me also, now that I open it, Postman, just give me a moment. I will also share that with you because I think you're not seeing it at the moment. That's okay. We'll fix that. Because as soon as I imported those files, it went right into my Postman app, and then it's not possible for you to see any longer. There we go. All right, we're back. So here we go. We have the application imported, and then we have here the client ID, the fleet environment, and here's the collection of the different endpoints that I just mentioned as well that you have here listed in as soon as you do the import. I go to the environments, this fleet environments, and then back to my project, Fleet Solutions project. I go into my OAuth client details. Here I have my client ID. It's for Sandbox. I enter the value, and I also enter the client secret. So this is just for my Sandbox, so it's all good. I hit save. And as soon as I save it, I can also choose it in the top right corner to use it. And let's give it a try. I go into Fleet Vehicle APIs. I hit authorization. It's already using client credentials as the grant type, and it uses the different client ID and client secret from the environment file. So I'm good to go and hit get new access token. It's completed. You can see here I have a token that I can start using, and I hit use token. So now when I go into use one of the endpoints like list vehicles, you can see I immediately get an empty array. So now I can basically use this to manage my project. If I go into the guides again, you can see we have the API references here for the fleet clearance API. Is where I would manage these type of endpoints, vehicle activations, and I can go into Postman and use those. So currently it's empty because I just created the project, and I go back to the simulator and I can start connecting this vehicle. I will copy the virtual VIN. So I will be working with this VIN. In a live environment, you would be using a real VIN. I go in and add vehicle endpoint, fill in the body, the brand, which is always Sandbox when you're working with the simulators, and I hit send. It goes into the pending state. That's always the default, and now approved. So you can see here that as soon as I added VIN, it went into pending state, and then 2 seconds later it went to an approved state. That's the default behavior of the simulator. We also have some VINs that go into rejected state, and if you just made up a VIN, it would also go into rejected state. And we have a few videos and more material about those different cases as well when you work with the simulators. But as I got this approved, I can also go in and get the data of the vehicle. I was just hitting send before entering the VIN. That's my bad. I go in and enter the VIN here, so it's part of the URL. And then I get all the data from this vehicle based on my data selection. For instance, the odometer, 2050 kilometers. Can go ahead and see if that's as expected. Yeah, here we go. Odometer 2050. If I change that to 8,000 kilometers, hit send. Here we go, 8,000 kilometers here as well. So this is just as it's always been working. You also can run different simulations to generate data. And as soon as you change the data, it also is pushed onto the stream. So if you're subscribed to the MQTT feed, you would get that data right from here. In the streaming options, that's when you can do this. The next point is kind of using MQTT. As mentioned, it takes a bit of time to propagate, so probably I cannot do it in this live environment, but there's no changes to before. You can really just switch on MQTT. You can save and update, and then you can generate your MQTT certificates right from here. As soon as you generate these certificates, there's also a simple snippet that we include for convenience. So you can just hit here, and you can get a complete snippet for using Mosquito Sub to subscribe to the broker feed. You have sandbox.mqtt.com, and it refers to different certificate files and also uses the different path, the topic that you should subscribe to, which here is the sandbox environment. For the live environment, it would be live, and also your client ID that you use to authenticate. I could even use that as simple as that, because if I go into my folder and downloads, this is what I just downloaded now that I generated these certificates. And if I expand that folder, you can see we have here the certificate of forest certificates, the client certificate, and also the private key. And all I need to do is to kind of go into that folder. So let me get this folder copied. I can go into the terminal, change directory to downloads. Here we go. You can see the free files is in this folder. And now I can just copy this snippet. And now I'm successfully subscribed to the broker of this MQTT feed. So as soon as I now go in and start changing the kind of data here, for instance, of odometer, it's starting to be pushed onto the feed. Now, because it takes a bit of time to propagate, it will not show up here right away. But once the messages come through here, it's exactly as it's in the old console, and also is written in our documentation that you can simply always refer to our MQTT documentation and also our specification of data. You would be getting messages like this onto the MQTT feed right here. And you just need to more or less copy and paste these files to get started in an easy way in the new simulator. For convenience, there's also a few links inside of the project here. You can always get to the guide, Slack, and also to the Airtable that has all the kind of the data properties listed in a technical way. We can filter and find what properties are needed just the same way as before, under kind of convenience functionality. So quite a lot of different kind of aspects to consider, but in the end, hopefully this should make it much easier as well to work with your projects. And importantly, that you should be able to find anything you need in the new kind of workspaces.